The galaxy had always thought it knew humanity. In the eyes of other civilizations, humans were still young, new, and relatively harmless. They had settlements on a handful of planets, a few colonies scattered among the stars, and a fleet small enough to be considered unthreatening. Humans were polite, cautious, and seemingly ordinary. They traded, explored, and mingled with other species, but they never overstepped, never showed off. They seemed like a species still learning their place among the stars. No one suspected that beneath this calm, orderly exterior, humans were hiding something the galaxy could not even begin to imagine. Deep inside remote moons, tucked away in abandoned craters or hidden under layers of artificial landscapes, there were structures so immense that even the most advanced civilizations would have trouble building them today. Massive warships floating silently in hidden hangars waited. These were not the sleek cruisers humans used for exploration, or the modest military vessels visible in public records. These were monuments of engineering, ancient, powerful, and utterly mysterious. The story began quietly, as most remarkable things do. A scout ship from a neighboring system was on a routine survey when it detected unusual emissions from a sector of space no one had fully charted. At first, the signals were faint, almost insignificant. But curiosity is a force no species can resist for long. The scouts approached carefully, their sensors trying to understand what was hidden in the shadows. What they found changed everything. At first, it was hard to believe. There, resting in a valley carved from an unremarkable moon, lay a warship unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was enormous, far larger than any ship documented in galactic records. Its hull shimmered with technology that seemed both advanced and ancient at the same time. The design did not match any human ship officially known, nor did it resemble the military vessels of any other civilization. It was as if it had appeared from a time no one could date. The scout sent images back to its home system, and those images were passed from one government to the next until they finally reached the Galactic Council. The reactions were immediate: panic, disbelief. A species that no one had considered a threat now seemed to have access to technology older than entire galactic empires. The questions began to pile up faster than anyone could answer them. How had humans built these ships? When had they been built? And why had the rest of the galaxy not known about them until now? Meanwhile, humans in the nearby systems carried on as if nothing had changed. To them, the warships were just part of a long-kept secret, a legacy from a time before the first cities on Earth, before the rise of kingdoms, before humans had even learned to write. The fleet had been maintained quietly, repaired in hidden shipyards, fueled and monitored, but never deployed. It was not a weapon of conquest, but a relic of survival, a testament to ingenuity and endurance. Humans understood that the galaxy was not ready to know the truth yet the galaxy would find out eventually. Historians and scientists scrambled to understand the magnitude of the discovery. Using advanced dating techniques, they analyzed the materials of the ships. Carbon residues, star matter analysis, and isotopic signatures all pointed to the same shocking conclusion. These ships had been built tens of thousands of years before humans had formed civilizations on Earth. Some even suggested that the construction predated records of the oldest alien empires. It was a revelation that shook every scholar, every historian, and every scientist who examined the evidence. No species could comprehend how humans, appearing so young and inexperienced, could possess technology and craftsmanship that rivaled civilizations far older and more advanced. Entire academic debates broke out across the stars. Some argued that humans must have discovered the ships and reverse-engineered them. Others claimed that humans were lying about their age, hiding the truth of their origin. Few dared to consider the possibility that humanity had simply been quietly mastering technology for tens of thousands of years, without the rest of the galaxy noticing. For the humans, though none of this was a secret they were desperate to explain, they had lived with these warships for centuries, maybe millennia, and their purpose had always been clear: readiness, survival, and preservation of knowledge. The galaxy might see them as threats now, but humans knew the truth. These ships were not instruments of war. They were proof of what humans could achieve when circumstances demanded it. The galaxy's perception did not matter. Humans did not need approval or recognition. They had built these ships in silence and had kept them safe until the time was right. Curiosity among alien civilizations only grew. A small delegation of explorers decided to approach the hidden moon, thinking that diplomacy and inspection might reveal answers. Their journey was tense. Humans, aware of the visitors' approach, prepared carefully but did not make aggressive moves. The moon's surface was still and empty, save for the distant hum of hidden engines powering the ancient fleet. Sensors detected massive shadows moving beneath the surface, but no weapons were fired. The humans chose restraint and patience over confrontation, a deliberate choice to maintain control of the narrative. When the alien explorers finally arrived, they were stunned. The hangars were massive enough to contain hundreds of ships, each larger than any vessel in the alien fleet. The technology inside was incomprehensible at first glance. The humans allowed a guided observation, but every step was measured. Visitors could see the scale and the power, but not the systems that controlled them. Every question about construction, design, and operation was met with vague but polite responses. Humans had chosen their words carefully. They revealed enough to impress, but not enough to reveal strategy or history. Even as the explorers left, reports flooded the galactic archives. Civilizations debated what it all meant. Humans, who had seemed ordinary and even naive in diplomacy, now became a species to be watched closely. Their past, their present, and their potential future were suddenly unknowns in every calculation. No longer could anyone assume that humans were a young, harmless species. The perception of humanity had shifted from curiosity to cautious respect, mingled with unease. Yet humans themselves remained calm. They had never needed the galaxy's approval. Their warships were a reminder of a different kind of power, the kind that comes from patience, ingenuity, and endurance. They had built before civilizations existed and had waited for the right moment to show the galaxy their legacy. When they finally revealed it, it was not with violence or arrogance, but with quiet confidence that the universe would understand eventually what humans were capable of. And in that quiet confidence lay a lesson the galaxy would not forget. The outward appearance of a species, the records of its achievements, and the assumptions of others could never capture the full truth. Humanity had waited, watched, and prepared. They had revealed a fraction of their past, but even this small glimpse was enough to change perceptions across light years of space. The galaxy would never again look at humans the same way. The moment the discovery of the hidden warships reached the wider galaxy, disbelief swept through every corner. For generations, humans had been underestimated. Other species had always assumed they were inexperienced, still learning, still small in power compared to the great empires of the stars. But now those assumptions were shattered. What humans had kept secret was not a fleet built in recent times. These warships were ancient, older than any recorded civilization, older than the rise of kingdoms, older than the oldest empires that claimed to shape the galaxy. Scholars scrambled to understand how such a thing could be possible. Some of the top historians, archaeologists, and physicists gathered in secure research hubs, running calculations and cross-referencing timelines. They studied every detail, the construction materials, the energy signatures, and the faint traces of technologies no one else had seen. They used methods they thought could explain the impossible, but the data kept pointing to the same shocking truth. These ships had existed long before humans had established cities on Earth, long before they had written a single story, or even domesticated animals. It was as if humanity had been preparing for the galaxy, while the galaxy was still learning to stand. At first, many refused to believe the evidence. It sounded too incredible, almost like fiction. How could a species so young with such a seemingly simple history possess technology and craftsmanship that outmatched civilizations thousands of years older? Some scholars claimed the readings were errors or tampered. Others whispered theories that humans might have discovered these ships from some lost ancient species and merely claimed them as their own. But the more research they conducted, the more undeniable the truth became. The ships were human-made. Every signature, every trace of energy, every pattern in the design confirmed it. Humans had built these warships themselves, long before anyone knew humans even existed as a civilization. As the realization sank in, reactions across the galaxy became intense. Diplomats called urgent meetings. Entire councils were disrupted by heated debates. Some demanded that humans be examined, their hidden worlds inspected. Others feared that pushing too hard might trigger a defensive response from a species capable of building warships older than entire empires. Few could even speak with certainty about what to do next. The galaxy had spent centuries measuring progress in simple ways: population size, technology levels, cultural achievements, but humanity had broken all those assumptions. Meanwhile, humans carried on as usual. To them, this revelation was only a fraction of the truth. They had lived with these ancient ships for centuries, maintaining them quietly, repairing them, ensuring they were ready if ever needed. No one had been harmed. No wars had been fought with them, and humans had never sought recognition or power from other species. The ships were not weapons of aggression. They were symbols of endurance, of preparation, and of human ingenuity. They were a reminder of what humanity could achieve if given time, patience, and the will to persist. Within the hidden hangars, maintenance crews moved with quiet efficiency. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense. Many were engineers, historians, and scientists, people dedicated to preserving the fleet and understanding its design. Their work was careful, precise, almost reverent. Every ship was treated like a legacy, a part of human history that the galaxy had not yet earned the right to see. Humans understood the weight of their secret. They knew that revealing it too soon could provoke fear, misunderstanding, or even preemptive attacks. As alien scholars continued their investigations from afar, humans observed patiently. They did not intervene aggressively when other civilizations debated their intentions. They allowed limited access to some data, enough to keep curiosity alive, but never enough to give away the full truth. It was a careful balancing act, showing capability without revealing strategy, demonstrating intelligence without inviting conflict. The more the galaxy learned, the more it realized how little it truly knew about humans. Official records had always painted humanity as young, simple, and curious. Trade logs, exploration reports, and diplomatic records suggested they were harmless. But all of that was a mask, a thin cover over a species that had quietly mastered challenges the galaxy could barely comprehend. Humans had existed in secret, building, learning, and preparing for a time when the world beyond Earth might demand their presence in ways no one could predict. News spread across other civilizations, sparking debates not only about technology but about history itself. If humans could create such ships long before cities existed, then everything previously believed about galactic progress came into question. Scholars began to wonder whether other species were truly advanced, or if their timelines were simply shorter, their progress more visible, but ultimately less enduring. Many species faced an uncomfortable truth. Intelligence, ingenuity, and endurance were not always easy to measure. They were not reflected in politics, trade, or population size alone. Humanity had quietly proven that power and knowledge could exist far beyond appearances. Some alien governments took a more cautious approach. They sent envoys to observe, hoping to understand human motives. These envoys traveled to remote moons, scanning the energy fields around hidden hangars, documenting what they could see. Even from a distance, the scale of the fleet was overwhelming. Ships that dwarfed the largest known vessels hovered silently, waiting, dormant but ready. Every observation confirmed that humans were not just another species. They were a challenge to everything the galaxy thought it knew about itself. Yet humans remained calm. They had no desire for war, no plans for conquest, and no need to justify themselves. Their confidence came from understanding, from preparation, and from patience. They had waited for the right moment to be seen, and when that moment came, they would reveal only what was necessary. The rest could wait. This quiet patience made humans even more enigmatic. The galaxy had always measured progress in immediate terms: resources gathered, fleets deployed, colonies established. But humans measured differently. They measured endurance, survival, and the ability to maintain knowledge across generations. They measured preparation over reaction, strategy over impulse. And now the galaxy was beginning to realize that these qualities, often overlooked, could be far more powerful than armies or empires. The revelation of the warships also created unease among the younger civilizations. They had always assumed that humans were still learning, still small in the grand scale of the galaxy. But now they had to reconsider. What else had humans been hiding? How much of their history, knowledge, and potential remained unseen? It was no longer enough to treat humanity as an ordinary species. They were an unknown, a force that had existed quietly for thousands of years, preparing in silence while others argued, explored, and expanded. Even the Galactic Council struggled to maintain order. Discussions became tense, negotiations heated. Humans had never pushed for influence or power, Yet their existence alone disrupted assumptions and challenged authority. Diplomats found themselves questioning old strategies, old alliances, and even old beliefs about how civilizations should rise. Humans had changed the rules simply by existing. Back on Earth and its colonies, humans continued their daily routines. Life on the surface went on as usual: research, exploration, education, and governance. Yet beneath the surface, in hidden facilities and orbital hangars, humans monitored the galaxy carefully. They watched reactions, measured curiosity, and anticipated questions. They did not need to act quickly, for they understood time differently than other species. Patience was part of their strength, and in patience humans had power that no immediate measurement could detect. The galaxy would continue to debate, speculate, and fear what it did not fully understand. But humans did not rush. They had survived for millennia, building ships that no civilization else could have imagined. They had waited quietly for the moment when their existence would no longer be underestimated. And now, even as other species began to piece together the scale of human ingenuity, the full truth remained just beyond reach. The ancient warships were more than technology. They were a statement. They were proof that humanity had existed before most could comprehend, that they had built before civilization was widespread, and that their potential was far greater than appearances suggested. Every day, as the galaxy continued to grapple with this revelation, humans remained patient. They understood the lesson they had already lived. The galaxy would only respect what it could see, and sometimes the greatest power was the patience to let others discover it in their own time. In this quiet, measured way, humans had already won a subtle but profound victory. They had not needed to fight, negotiate, or demand recognition. They had revealed just enough to ensure the galaxy would take notice, just enough to make other civilizations reconsider assumptions, and just enough to remind everyone that history, knowledge, and power were not always visible on the surface. Humanity had waited for this moment for millennia, and now the universe was beginning to understand in fragments what humans had always known: that the measure of a species was not in appearances, but in endurance, ingenuity, and the patience to master the impossible. When the galaxy finally realized the scale of what humans had been hiding, reactions ranged from awe to fear. For centuries, most civilizations had thought of humans as ordinary, still learning and relatively unimportant in the wider scope of galactic affairs. They were polite, curious, and sometimes naive, but harmless. That perception was now gone. The hidden fleet of ancient warships changed everything. It wasn't just the size of the ships that startled everyone. It was the history they represented. Humans had existed, built, and mastered technology in ways no one had predicted, long before any formal civilization had even risen. News spread like wildfire. Every major system, every interstellar academy, every council chamber debated the implications. Historians argued over timelines, trying to reconcile the new evidence with everything they thought they knew. Scholars and scientists worked in desperate teams, running calculations, re-examining historical records, and questioning every assumption about human progress. No theory could fully explain how a species so seemingly young could have achieved such mastery so long ago. Every answer led to more questions. Meanwhile, human societies continued with their usual rhythm. Life on planets, in colonies, and aboard orbital stations remained calm. Trade continued, research missions proceeded, and education flourished. To the galaxy, it seemed as if humans were still living in ordinary ways, polite and peaceful. But beneath this surface, humans were observing, analyzing, and waiting. They had anticipated that the day of discovery would come, and when it did, they were ready. There was no panic, no rush to prove themselves, only careful control of what the galaxy could see. Alien civilizations responded in very different ways. Some were fascinated. They wanted to study humans closely, understand the methods behind their technology, and learn from the centuries of knowledge hidden within the ancient fleet. Researchers petitioned for access to the hidden hangars, hoping to study the ships in person. Others were more cautious. They feared that humans, having waited so long, might have plans that no one yet understood. They debated whether showing curiosity might provoke a defensive response from a species that clearly valued patience and preparation. The Galactic Council convened emergency meetings. Ambassadors from various species argued over the appropriate course of action. Some suggested demanding immediate access to human fleets, calling for inspections and treaties. Others warned against pushing too hard. If humans were capable of building warships before civilizations existed, it was possible they had capabilities far beyond what any record showed. Every council session ended with uncertainty, as if every decision risked triggering a response the galaxy was not prepared to handle. Humanity, however, did not act. They understood that perception could be as powerful as action. The fleet had existed for millennia, maintained quietly and carefully. There was no need to rush into the galaxy's eyes or prove dominance. Humans knew that control came from patience, from letting others underestimate them until the right moment. Even when the galaxy called, demanded, or speculated, humans remained calm. They offered glimpses, hints, and careful observations, but never revealed the full scope of their capability. Observing humans from afar, other species began to notice something unusual. Despite the fleet's scale and the magnitude of the secret, humans displayed no signs of fear, aggression, or desire for immediate recognition. They were deliberate, measured, and patient. Even in the face of attention and speculation, they acted in ways that suggested confidence without arrogance. It was a kind of power that could not be measured with fleets, armies, or economic dominance. Humans had mastered the art of presence, the quiet kind that leaves others unsettled because it cannot be challenged directly. The revelation also forced the galaxy to rethink history itself. If humans had built warships before recorded civilization, what did that say about progress, technology, and the understanding of intelligence? Many civilizations had believed they were among the most advanced, measuring development through population growth, technological displays, and political influence. But humans showed that advancement was not always linear. Progress could occur in hidden ways, quietly and persistently. Civilization was not just about what others could see. It was about what could be preserved, maintained, and perfected over generations. Some younger species felt fear. They had always assumed humans were still learning, still developing. Now they understood that humans had been hiding centuries, perhaps millennia, of mastery. How much else could humans be capable of that remained unseen? Diplomats and scientists struggled to answer these questions. They had relied on visible progress as a standard. But humans had quietly proven that appearances could be deceiving. Every calculation, every projection of influence had to be reconsidered. Yet humans themselves were unshaken. They had seen the galaxy underestimate them countless times, and had learned to use that underestimation as an advantage. The ancient warships were not weapons meant for aggression. They were symbols of endurance and preparedness. Maintaining them required intelligence, planning, and foresight across generations. Humans knew that other species might view the fleet as a threat, but they also knew that the threat existed only in perception. The reality was simple. The fleet represented readiness, ingenuity, and the ability to endure challenges far beyond the expectations of others. In the hidden hangars, humans worked quietly. Engineers and historians, scientists and strategists moved with careful precision. Every ship was maintained with attention to detail. Every system checked and repaired. Knowledge was recorded, tested, and passed down. The fleet was a living archive, a record of human capability that had endured when civilizations elsewhere might have risen and fallen in the same span of time. It was a testament to human persistence, and the galaxy was only now beginning to grasp its significance. Meanwhile, as discussions continued in council chambers across the stars, humans observed the reactions with patient understanding. They did not need to justify themselves, explain their past, or prove their power. The revelations alone were enough to shift the galaxy's perception. Humans understood the lesson that many other species were just beginning to learn. True power often lies in patience, endurance, and the ability to remain steady when others rush to judgment. Alien civilizations debated among themselves about the best course of action. Some advocated for treaties, hoping to formalize relations and gain insight into human knowledge. Others considered military precautions, fearing that the hidden fleet could be activated suddenly. Secret intelligence agencies tried to gather more data, sending probes and scanning for signals. Yet every effort met the same challenge. Humans were careful, controlled, and aware. They gave just enough to keep curiosity alive, but never revealed the full scope of their secrets. This careful balance frustrated many. The galaxy had long relied on visible power to measure influence, yet humans had shown that influence could be quiet, subtle, and strategic. It was a lesson that would take years, even decades, for other species to fully understand. Humans had built not only ships but also a new kind of strength, one measured by preparation, patience, and intelligence rather than by conquest or immediate display. Even as the galaxy grappled with the implications, life among humans remained ordinary on the surface. Children studied, explorers trained, and scientists conducted research. Everyday life continued alongside the hidden reality of ancient warships. Humans had mastered the art of balancing normality with preparedness. To the galaxy, this calm exterior made them seem approachable and harmless. Yet beneath it lay centuries of knowledge, planning, and capability that no one fully understood. Observers began to realize that the human way of operating was fundamentally different from most civilizations. Where other species measured success in speed and visibility, humans measured it in endurance and control. Where others reacted impulsively to events, humans waited, calculated, and acted only when necessary. It was a mindset that the galaxy had not encountered before, a combination of patience, intelligence, and quiet confidence that made humans unpredictable, yet steady. As the debates continued in council chambers, alien governments, and research academies, humans simply watched. They did not need approval, recognition, or validation. Their existence, their achievements, and their fleet had already proven their capability. The galaxy could speculate, fear, or admire, but humans had already accomplished what mattered most: survival, mastery, and preparedness across time spans that no other civilization could match. And so, humanity's quiet patience began to reshape the galaxy's understanding. No longer could they be dismissed as a young, inexperienced species. They were a force of endurance, ingenuity, and careful control. They had built before civilizations existed, maintained knowledge through countless generations, and waited until the moment was right to let the galaxy glimpse even a fraction of their truth. The revelation of the ancient fleet was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humans could hide, but it had yet to understand the full extent of their resilience, creativity, and long-term vision. And humans, as always, remained calm. They had already mastered the art of timing, the power of patience, and the subtle influence of presence. The galaxy might take time to fully appreciate it, but humans had waited for this moment for centuries. The galaxy had begun to notice them, speculate about them, and question their history. They had observed the reactions from afar, measured the curiosity, and carefully considered the right way to reveal themselves. But humans were not hasty. They understood the power of timing, of controlled disclosure, and of showing strength without causing panic. The fleet of ancient warships had remained hidden for millennia, maintained with care and precision. And now it was time to let the galaxy see what they had been keeping. The strategic unveiling was not done out of arrogance or aggression. Humans were not seeking to conquer or dominate. They wanted to show their capability and readiness, to remind the galaxy that appearances could be misleading. Every step of the process was carefully planned. The ships were prepared, their systems tested, and their engines brought to life quietly but deliberately. Maintenance crews worked around the clock, ensuring that every component from the propulsion systems to the energy shields operated perfectly. This was not merely a demonstration of technology. It was a statement of human ingenuity, endurance, and foresight. As the fleet prepared to move from hidden hangars to designated observation zones, humans communicated with the galaxy in carefully measured ways. Signals were sent not as threats but as invitations to witness. Humans wanted observers to see, to understand, and to realize that there was far more to their species than anyone had imagined. Ambassadors from other civilizations arrived in controlled numbers, escorted to safe distances where they could observe the magnitude of the fleet without fear. The scale of the ships was overwhelming. They were massive, far larger than any vessel recorded in known history, and yet they moved with precision and grace as if designed not for display, but for function. The alien observers could hardly comprehend what they were seeing. Their instruments recorded energy readings, hull compositions, and designs that defied conventional understanding. The ships were old yet advanced. They carried technologies that combined centuries of development with engineering principles no one else had seen. To the galaxy, it was a revelation. Humans, the species that had seemed ordinary and almost innocent, had created vessels that predated civilizations, vessels that could challenge every assumption about power, technology, and intelligence. Even as the observers recorded their data, they noticed something remarkable about humans themselves. The people in command of the fleet were calm, measured and unhurried. There was no shouting, no signs of panic, no display of aggression. Every decision, every movement was deliberate. Humans had mastered not just machines, but patience, discipline, and strategy. Their presence was powerful, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of their confidence, clarity, and control. The galaxy had underestimated them for centuries, and that underestimation now worked in humanity's favor. The reactions among alien civilizations were mixed. Some were awed, realizing that humans had achieved mastery over technology far beyond what anyone expected. They marveled at the scale, the design, and the careful maintenance of ships that had existed long before any formal empire. Some scholars were inspired, eager to study humans and learn from their methods. They spoke of humans as a mystery, a species that had quietly achieved greatness without seeking recognition. Others reacted with fear and suspicion. They worried that humans might have intentions that could threaten existing powers. Could a species with such capabilities decide to assert dominance? Would the fleet, dormant for millennia, be used for destruction? These questions led to tension and careful diplomacy. Alien leaders debated how to approach humans, unsure whether to negotiate, observe, or simply step back. Humans, however, gave no signs of hostility. They were not seeking to control or intimidate. They only revealed enough to demonstrate capability, leaving the galaxy to decide how to respond. Humans understood the value of restraint. The unveiling was not meant to provoke, but to communicate. The fleet itself told a story of endurance, preparation, and mastery. Each ship, carefully maintained and fully operational, symbolized human patience and intelligence. The design of the vessels suggested centuries of development, long-term planning, and an understanding of engineering that exceeded contemporary norms. It was not a display of force for the sake of fear, it was a lesson in perception. Humans were teaching the galaxy that true power was not always visible, and that patience could be more formidable than aggression. The controlled demonstration also highlighted human cooperation and discipline. Crews worked with precision, coordinating movements across vast distances with seamless communication. Every maneuver, every adjustment was executed flawlessly. The observers noted that this was not the work of a hurried civilization seeking recognition, but of a species that had mastered the art of preparation, coordination, and long-term thinking. Humans had waited for the right moment to show the galaxy their capabilities, and that timing amplified the impact of the revelation. As the fleet moved into position, it became clear that humans were challenging assumptions about history and power. The ships themselves were ancient, yet their systems were fully functional. Alien civilizations had never seen anything like it. The scale alone was difficult to comprehend. These were not warships built for recent conflicts. They were vessels designed for survival, for endurance, for challenges that spanned centuries. The technology was sophisticated but also resilient, engineered to withstand time itself. Observers began to realize that humans had not just survived, they had thrived, building capabilities that would endure long after empires rose and fell. The careful unveiling also forced other civilizations to reconsider their strategies and assumptions. Many had relied on visible power, fleets, armies, and colonies to measure human influence. Now they understood that appearances could be deceiving. Humans had been underestimated, and the consequences of that misjudgment were now clear. The fleet's existence challenged the galaxy's assumptions about progress, intelligence, and the nature of power. Scholars began to write new theories, while diplomats reconsidered old alliances and strategies. Humans had shifted the balance simply by revealing what they had been hiding. Despite the impact on the galaxy, humans themselves remained calm and focused. They did not seek praise or validation. Their goal was simple: to show capability while maintaining control over the narrative. By revealing only what they chose, humans demonstrated not only power but wisdom. They understood that how and when a secret is revealed can be as important as the secret itself. In doing so, they gained influence without confrontation, respect without aggression, and attention without threat. Observers were struck not only by the fleet, but by the humans' approach. There was a lesson in every movement. Patience, precision, and restraint could achieve what brute force never could. The galaxy had measured power in immediate terms: fleets, armies, and resources. But humans showed that real strength could exist quietly, waiting for the right moment to act. The ancient warships were a manifestation of this strength, a symbol of human endurance, ingenuity, and vision. In the weeks that followed, the controlled unveiling continued to ripple through the galaxy. Scholars debated, diplomats negotiated, and military leaders reassessed their strategies. Humans had not acted to dominate, yet their presence alone caused shifts in perception and policy. They had revealed enough to demonstrate capability, and the galaxy was forced to reckon with a new reality. Humanity was far older, more capable and more enduring than anyone had believed. Even as discussions continued, humans returned to their routines. Life on Earth and its colonies remained normal. Scientists continued their experiments. Educators taught their students and explorers trained for future missions. The fleet was maintained quietly, as it had been for centuries. The unveiling had accomplished its purpose. The galaxy now knew that humans were not to be underestimated. Beyond that, the details of their full capability remained theirs alone. A reminder that true power lies not in display but in readiness. In this way, humans had achieved a subtle but profound victory. They had revealed just enough to reshape perception, just enough to command attention, and just enough to remind the galaxy that endurance, intelligence, and patience could surpass immediate strength. The ancient warships were more than machines. They were a testament to human capability, vision, and long-term thinking. The galaxy had begun to see humans differently. They were no longer an ordinary species to be observed, underestimated, or dismissed. Humans had quietly built, prepared, and mastered capabilities that challenged every assumption about progress, power, and intelligence. And through a controlled, deliberate unveiling, they had ensured that this lesson was clear without a single act of aggression. The strategic reveal of the fleet had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy and speculation could not. Humans had shifted the galaxy's understanding of them. They had shown that patience, preparation, and quiet strength were as formidable as any visible power. And as the fleet rested in its observation zones, fully operational and ready, humans remained calm, confident, and in control. They had revealed the past, hinted at their mastery, and reminded the galaxy that underestimating humanity was a mistake that no civilization could afford to repeat. The moment humans revealed a portion of their fleet, the galaxy began to rethink everything it thought it knew. But the reaction was not just about technology, size, or history. It was deeper than that. It was philosophical. Alien civilizations began to question the very way they had measured intelligence, progress, and power. How could a species that appeared so young and unassuming possess such capability? How could they have built warships long before organized civilizations existed? The galaxy realized it had been looking at humans through the wrong lens. Scholars, philosophers, and historians debated late into their cycles. Some argued that humanity had always been special, a species that had developed intelligence, resourcefulness, and endurance in isolation. Others questioned whether the galaxy's own timelines and records were flawed. If humans could achieve what they had, what else in the galaxy might be misdated or misunderstood? What other secrets had civilizations overlooked while assuming superiority based on what was visible? The philosophical questions extended beyond academics. Politicians, strategists, and diplomats also began to rethink their approaches to humanity. Negotiations that had once assumed humans were inexperienced now required a new level of caution. Alliances had to be reconsidered. Treaties that depended on assumptions about human capabilities were suddenly fragile. Every interaction, every decision had to be evaluated against the new reality. Humans were no longer simply a species among many. They were a species that challenged assumptions, forced reflection, and demanded respect without making demands. Even more startling, some civilizations began to see themselves differently. If humans could achieve this quietly, what did it say about the ways other species measured themselves? Some began to realize that visible displays of power, armies, fleets, empires, might not truly reflect capability or wisdom. Humans had demonstrated that preparation, patience, and careful planning could be more formidable than aggression or speed. It was a lesson the galaxy had not been prepared to learn, and it made many uncomfortable. Humans themselves observed all of this with quiet detachment. They did not need recognition, validation, or fear from others. Their goal was never to dominate, only to reveal enough of the truth to shift perception. The philosophical impact was a byproduct, a natural consequence of revealing even a fraction of their hidden history. Humans understood that the galaxy often measured value superficially, and part of their strategy was to show that true capability could exist beyond immediate observation. The fleet was not just a weapon, it was a statement of thought, planning, and endurance. Observers were struck by the contrast between human restraint and the chaos it induced in the galaxy. Civilizations that relied on immediate displays of power struggled to understand how humans could wait, plan, and act with precision across generations. Philosophers debated what it meant for a species to have foresight measured in centuries rather than cycles. Humans had demonstrated a concept of time and strategy that many species could barely grasp, let alone apply. The debate touched on ethics as well. Could a species that had mastered patience for centuries be trusted? Could humans, if provoked, act in ways that others could not predict? Or was their restraint a sign of maturity and wisdom? Some argued that humans were inherently peaceful because they had the power to be otherwise, and that true strength was measured in self-control, not aggression. Others feared that patience could be a mask for ambition, a way to wait until civilizations were vulnerable before asserting dominance. The philosophical dilemma only added to humanity's enigma. Humanity's demonstration of control extended beyond the fleet itself. Their interactions with alien diplomats were precise and measured. Humans answered questions carefully, offered glimpses of data but withheld strategic details. Every word, every gesture conveyed competence, awareness, and confidence. Observers could sense that humans understood their own power and the reactions it could provoke. It was a subtle form of influence, one that did not rely on force but on perception, timing, and restraint. The philosophical effect was also cultural. Alien civilizations began to question the values they had prioritized for centuries. Had they been focused too much on expansion, conquest, or immediate gains? Humans showed that a species could achieve greatness quietly, patiently, and without arrogance. It was a reminder that endurance, wisdom, and preparation could be just as powerful as visible achievements. Some civilizations even began to study human methods, not to replicate them, but to understand how patience and long-term planning could create lasting results. Humans were aware of the subtle power of this demonstration. They knew that perception shaped relationships, strategy, and diplomacy. By revealing part of their fleet and maintaining control over what was disclosed, they had forced the galaxy to reconsider assumptions without firing a shot. The warships themselves were ancient, but the impact they created was immediate. Humans had shown that their strength was not just physical or technological, it was intellectual, strategic, and philosophical. The lessons spread slowly, like ripples across the galaxy. Scholars wrote papers, philosophers debated ethics, and leaders adjusted strategies. Humanity had introduced a new way of thinking about power, that it could exist quietly, endure for centuries, and influence others without direct confrontation. Civilizations began to see that underestimating a species could have consequences far beyond immediate calculations. They learned that patience, preparation, and restraint were not weaknesses, they were strengths. Even as the galaxy reflected on these lessons, humans continued their normal routines. On planets, colonies, and orbital stations, life went on. Scientists conducted research, educators taught, and explorers trained for the future. The fleet remained carefully maintained, fully operational but dormant. Humans had demonstrated their capability, shifted perception, and influenced the galaxy's thinking. Yet they acted with restraint. Their philosophy of measured action extended beyond technology and strategy. It was a part of their very culture. This quiet confidence began to redefine humanity's role in the galaxy. They were no longer just explorers, traders, or diplomats. They were a species that demonstrated mastery over time, technology, and strategy. They had built fleets that predated civilizations, and in doing so, they had shown that endurance, wisdom, and foresight were as formidable as fleets of warships. The galaxy began to understand that humans could shape history without ever raising a weapon. The philosophical impact reached even the youngest civilizations, who had once dismissed humans as insignificant. These species began to question their own priorities and strategies. Some realized they had relied too heavily on visible power, failing to consider patience, intelligence, and long-term planning. Others recognized that humans had achieved what they could only dream of, a legacy of mastery that persisted quietly, unaffected by the rise and fall of empires. Humans did not seek to teach, enforce, or control. They simply existed, demonstrated capability, and let the galaxy observe the results. The philosophical lesson was clear. True strength lies in preparation, endurance, and the ability to act at the right moment. Civilization is not only about immediate achievement, it is about longevity, intelligence, and the foresight to build for the future. The ancient fleet was not only a technological marvel, it was a symbol of this lesson. The effect of humanity's revelation was not immediate, but it was profound. Civilizations began to approach diplomacy differently, weigh actions more carefully, and reconsider what it meant to be advanced. The galaxy began to see that human strength was not just in ships or technology. It was in mindset, culture, and patience. This quiet but profound impact was more lasting than any battle, treaty, or conquest. Even as humans observed the galaxy's reactions, they remained focused on their own growth. Life continued on their home planets and colonies. Research advanced, exploration missions prepared for the future, and the fleet remained ready, fully operational but controlled. Humans had revealed just enough to demonstrate capability and influence perception, but the full extent of their power and history remained their own. In this way, humans had shifted the galaxy's thinking without aggression, without demand, and without force. They had demonstrated that intelligence, endurance, and patience could be as powerful as fleets, armies, or empires. The philosophical impact of their actions would be felt for generations. Alien civilizations would not only remember the fleet, they would remember the lesson it represented, that underestimating a species can blind you to its true power, and that quiet mastery can shape the course of history without confrontation. Humans had revealed a fraction of their secret, yet it was enough to leave a lasting impression. The galaxy had begun to understand that appearances could be deceiving, that history could hide truths, and that real power often comes from patience, planning, and persistence. Humanity had achieved a subtle victory. They had reshaped perception, influenced philosophy, and demonstrated mastery across generations, all without a single act of aggression. And as the galaxy adjusted to this new understanding, humans continued their lives calmly. The lesson of patience, endurance, and quiet mastery had been sent. The ancient fleet, fully operational and carefully maintained, waited silently. Humans had shown capability shift. By the time the galaxy fully grasped the existence of the ancient human fleet, a profound shift had already begun. Humans had shown the stars what they were capable of without firing a single weapon or demanding obedience. The revelation was not only about technology or size, it was about perspective, patience, and influence. Entire civilizations were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about human history, intelligence, and potential. In doing so, humans had quietly changed the balance of perception across the galaxy. Even after centuries of observation, humans themselves remained calm and focused. Life on Earth and its colonies continued as it always had. Scientists conducted experiments, explorers trained for missions, engineers maintained critical systems, and communities thrived in everyday routines. Yet beneath this apparent normality lay a remarkable truth. Humans had achieved mastery of preparation and endurance, and the ancient fleet symbolized this mastery. It was a living testament to what could be accomplished when a species thought in centuries rather than years. Alien civilizations reacted in different ways. Some felt awe, recognizing that humanity had achieved something far beyond their comprehension. Scholars wrote countless papers, debating the implications of humans building warships before civilizations existed. Philosophers questioned their own definitions of intelligence, progress, and strength. Military leaders calculated the risks of underestimating humans in the future. Diplomats restructured alliances and treaties, acknowledging that humans were no longer a species that could be measured simply by visible resources or fleet size. Other civilizations responded with caution. They realized that humans were patient and precise, capable of planning centuries ahead. The revelation of the fleet forced them to consider the possibility that humans had strategies and resources beyond what anyone could imagine. Even as humans remained non-aggressive, their ability to influence perception had given them a subtle but undeniable form of power. The galaxy was learning that domination was not always shown in fleets or empires. It could exist quietly, through presence, endurance, and foresight. Humans themselves observed this transformation with quiet satisfaction. They had never sought recognition or immediate approval. Their objective had been simple: to reveal capability without arrogance, to demonstrate preparation without provoking fear, and to remind the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving. The ancient fleet had accomplished that mission. It had shown that humans could act with precision, control, and wisdom, and that influence could be achieved without aggression. The ripple effects extended far beyond politics and strategy. The galaxy began to reconsider the very way it measured civilization. Until now, empires had relied on visible achievements, population, colonies, military strength, as the standard for power. Humans had demonstrated a different model. Power could exist quietly, maintained over generations without the need for constant display or competition. It was a lesson in patience, intelligence, and subtle influence that many species struggled to grasp. At the same time, humans continued to expand their knowledge and reach. Scientific missions were planned and executed with precision. New colonies were developed, not out of necessity but to explore possibilities and secure long-term sustainability. The fleet remained ready, fully operational yet dormant, a silent promise of resilience and ingenuity. Humans had demonstrated that capability did not need to be exercised immediately to be effective. The very knowledge that such power existed was enough to reshape perception and behavior across civilizations. The impact on diplomacy was profound. Humans had become a species that could not be ignored or underestimated. Alien leaders approached negotiations with a new level of respect, recognizing that humans operated on a different scale of strategy and foresight. The threat of aggression was low, but the influence humans held through perception alone was enormous. This subtle form of dominance reshaped alliances, treaties, and the way civilizations interacted. Humans had proven that control could be exercised quietly, through demonstration rather than enforcement. Civilizations began to re-evaluate their own histories. If humans had built warships before civilizations existed, what else might they have missed in their understanding of the galaxy? Entire academic fields were revisited, timelines recalculated, and assumptions questioned. Some species felt fear at the realization of their own gaps in knowledge, while others felt a cautious respect for humanity's endurance and ingenuity. Humans had achieved an unprecedented form of influence, the ability to inspire reflection without action, to command attention without aggression, and to shift perception without a single battle. The philosophical impact deepened further. Species began to consider the nature of preparation and patience. Humans had demonstrated that long-term thinking, careful planning, and subtle action could be as powerful as fleets of warships or sprawling empires. Philosophers debated the ethics of patience versus immediate action, the value of endurance over conquest, and the power of knowledge maintained across generations. Humanity's revelation had forced civilizations to confront uncomfortable truths about how they valued progress and intelligence. Meanwhile, humans continued their routines with remarkable balance. Education thrived, scientific research advanced, and exploration expanded. Yet beneath these ordinary activities lay the extraordinary reality of the fleet. Humans had managed to blend everyday life with extraordinary capability, showing that greatness could coexist with normality. Their calm presence was a reminder that influence did not require constant demonstration. The galaxy had been reminded of a powerful truth. Quiet mastery could outlast aggression, foresight could surpass impulsiveness, and preparation could outweigh immediate advantage. As the years passed, the full implications of the revelation became clear. Humanity's fleet had reshaped the balance of power without firing a shot. Alien civilizations learned that appearances could be deceiving, that history might hide truths, and that influence could be subtle yet profound. Diplomacy, strategy, and perception were all altered, because humans had chosen to reveal only what was necessary, to act with restraint, and to demonstrate capability with wisdom. The lesson was clear. Underestimating a species that thinks in centuries rather than cycles could be a costly mistake. Even generations after the initial revelation, humans continued to observe the galaxy carefully. They monitored reactions, adjusted strategies quietly, and ensured that the fleet remained fully operational. Humans had proven that real power was measured not by immediate action, but by readiness, intelligence, and patience. The ancient ships were not just tools of defense, they were symbols of foresight, endurance, and the careful cultivation of capability over millennia. In the end, humanity's revelation changed the galaxy forever. Civilizations no longer measured progress solely by visible expansion or immediate achievements. Scholars, strategists, and diplomats recognized the value of endurance, preparation, and subtle influence. Humans had demonstrated that mastery could exist quietly, persist over centuries, and influence perceptions without aggression. Their demonstration had become a model for understanding true power, intelligence, and capability. Humans had not sought to dominate the galaxy or assert immediate control. They had acted with patience, wisdom, and strategy, allowing the galaxy to witness a fraction of their achievement. That fraction was enough to shift perceptions, inspire reflection, and command respect. The fleet of ancient warships was a symbol of this philosophy. Strength through preparation, influence through demonstration, and mastery through endurance. As civilizations adjusted to this new understanding, humans continued their lives with balance and purpose. Exploration expanded, colonies grew, research advanced, and communities thrived. Yet the quiet presence of the fleet remained a reminder that humanity's influence was already profound, even without overt action. They had achieved what few species could, to reshape the galaxy's perception through subtlety, patience, and intelligence. And so, the galaxy learned a powerful lesson from humanity. Real power is not always visible. True mastery lies in preparation, endurance, and foresight. Influence can be exercised quietly, and history can be shaped without a single act of aggression. Humans had revealed a part of themselves just enough to change perception forever. They had built before civilizations existed, endured through time, and demonstrated that patience and intelligence could outweigh visible might. In this quiet, deliberate way, humanity had won the greatest victory of all: respect, recognition, and understanding without firing a shot. The ancient fleet remained in orbit, fully operational, a symbol of a civilization that had mastered time, preparation, and strategy. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, and humans, calm and patient as always, continued their journey, knowing that the most lasting power often comes not from aggression, but from the quiet mastery of endurance, knowledge, and foresight.